to each other. I mean, how can you take orders in and then somehow write on a sheet of paper or print it out and bring it then to the factory what needs to be manufactured, so that once it's manufactured, it's again printed out and being brought back to the office so that the shipping information can be sent to the client and the client can be invoiced. That doesn't make sense. These systems must be integrated to be fully operational and effective and efficient. Well, as already mentioned, OT is on a regular basis a little bit outdated. It's not unheard of that manufacturing facilities are still using floppy disks.
Really?
And that already tells us a little bit about the technology that is being used. That also means that these systems potentially cannot be even patched because the OS is already literally 15, 20 years old. And that means there are inherited vulnerabilities in those solutions that just simply cannot be fixed. So we have an issue here, right? On one hand, we have the imperative to connect. On the other hand, it's mind-boggling dangerous. Well, that tells me a couple of things. Ramesh already mentioned governance. We also heard already network segmentation. It comes down to we need to understand the risk. And once we understand the risk, we can implement suitable controls. And this is where the governance system kicks in, or as we say, management system. This is where ISO 27001 kicks in, where an organization is doing a proper risk assessment, identifies what could go wrong, because rest assured, it will go wrong, and then implement suitable controls. Whether this is network segmentation, whether this is zero trust methodologies, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, it's about reducing the blast zone. And that's the important thing. We will be attacked. We are being attacked as we speak. The only question is, where does this attack end? Does it end on the outside firewall, or does it end on my laptop? If it's ending on my laptop, it's spreading. And that's the issue. So there is no way IT and OT must be connected. On the other hand, we need to be extremely careful and have suitable technical, but also organizational controls in place to ensure that those systems are not infecting each other.
You know, floppy disk. There's a term I haven't heard, and I bet you there will be some people in our audience who don't even know what that looks like. So it's kind of fun to look back to 1999. Anyway, for you, Swami, can you talk to me about some case examples rather from utilities, energy, and transport to kind of fill in this picture?
Sure. One of the most affected areas are the utility area, and because if the utility area are affected, obviously it is not going to provide the utility services to the common people. Take the example of water supply. The ransomware attacks on the water supply systems put a stop in those services, and people are immediately getting impacted. It happens so in American countries, which I don't want to mention the specifications about it, but it happened recently, and many districts or states or something like, no, they are all affected, and it was lasting for a long time, maybe days or if not weeks. So even one day, you imagine that you don't have water, and what will happen to you for your daily core. So we cannot go and buy water for all the needs. So this is one of the very important thing to safeguard this particular aspect of it against any attacks, including the ransomware, etc. It could be due to many reasons. Coming to the energy, power, or it could be oil and gas, or it could be anything sort of that thing. And mostly these are all controlled by the OT environment, like operation technology, wherein it is also integrated with the IT environment, so that any operational technology in the gas field or any other places wherein the high pressure pumps that inject the high pressure air, and so that they can get the oil out. And these things are all completely controlled by the OT environment. Imagine a country want to attack another country. I think the situation we know there in the Middle East, one country is attacking the other one, not through warheads, not through other things. Maybe this happening somewhere, of course. But other than that, this kind of organized crimes on one country, one country's energy requirements, or the oil fields, or even the power sector, if they if they're affected, the country's revenues lost, reputation is lost, and the entire thing will be coming to a standstill. It will be a major disaster from this happening. But some countries are not revealing it also. I don't want to mention the specific countries now. Recently, this happened. Obviously, the next one on the transportation. The transportation is is about many aspects of it. One transportation may be involving people, like carrying passengers, either the air traffic or through ships, etc. Or it could be another traffic area through the cargo movement. In Japan, some of the ports were affected by the ransomware. Imagine the shipment, movement of the ship, movement of the containers. How much effect was there? So it could be serving the global needs. So not one country is affected; it is affecting many countries also, and crippling the air traffic. In fact, some of the countries in the in American continent, wherein the 3 weeks was delayed in some of the specific airport, and they are disrupting the boarding operations and also delaying the baggage movements. And of course, the information about the flights, everything has been coming to standstill. Now we depend on the technology for all, so we don't have anything now. Then also, like the another one on the UK, in fact. So this is a UK logistics wherein they completely lost the movements due to some ransomware attacks. And of course, happened in Australia also, and wherein the port operations were not able to move about 30,000 odd containers. They're all stranded.
Wow.
And it is all affecting for more than a week or so. It's all happened in the recent past. So we must be cautious. Is not only affecting the organizations, it affecting the country, it affecting the people, affecting the business as well. Thank you.
It's much bigger, as you say, than just sort of little isolated incidents. It does affect countries, and you're right, technology affects us all. So, Ramesh, how can standards and frameworks reduce complexity?
In fact, yeah, whatever the question which you're asking, the much and the expanded and the broader question which you're asking on that. Yeah, standards and the frameworks reduce the complexity. Okay, so I used to put it in such a way that people used to work as a traditional way. In 1988, the first mother standard of quality management system standard, ISO 9001, draft version got released, and the 1994 version was the first release version. Incidentally, that time only I started my career in terms of my after 91, I came back from engineering and started working on that. So the systematic approach and the standards which is guide for any organization, for all kind of organization, it is put them on the right track. I will put it in a three broader category in terms of the how the standards and the frameworks are which is helpful to the organization. The first point is the providing the structure, approach, and the consistency. So it will give you a structured approach and the consistency way of working, and also providing the streamlining the decision making process in all aspects, is the either business point of view or the process point of view or the technical point of view. The third point is the enhancing the efficiency and the quality of output. So these are the three broad categories which the standards will help a lot. I was explaining about that mother standard of quality management system. There are so many standards: environmental, occupational health and safety, business continuity, information security, and there are the infrastructure also we have a standard, and the all aspects. There are many standards which is there. Day by day, the technology is increasing. So Billy was talking about the floppy drive. So I started using the floppy drive. Till today, the AI technology. If anybody wants, they'll get into the OpenAI and ChatGPT, and they'll do whatever they want. So whenever the technology is increasing, at the same time, the risk is also increasing like anything. Unless otherwise, if we don't have a systematic approach and the proper framework is not there, it is very difficult to control over on the processes and control over on the organizational aspects, which will be putting down to the organizational profitability and the business growth and other point of view. So the standards, which is going to be a more helpful and more way of putting them in a proper way, and the structured approach, systematic approach, and consistency will be there in terms of using the standards and the frameworks.
So, Willie, this is going to be a question for you. What unique benefits does ISO IEC 27019 bring to the energy and utility sector?
Yes, I needed to smile when Ramesh was referring to ISO 9001 1994, because, well, that's exactly when I started with quality management systems, and I implemented a QMS at a stamping facility way back in Germany at that time. And ever since, I must admit, I'm addicted. I'm addicted to ISO standards. I'm addicted to standardization. And on a regular basis, when I have presentations, I have one slide with no word whatsoever. And it's the picture of all the different power outlets we have around the globe.
Oh.
And then I ask, why? Why in the world do we think that it is okay to have at least 30 different power outlets? It doesn't make sense. Well, it may have made sense 80 years ago, 100 years ago, when, a couple of dudes came together and said, in order to protect my factory from those foreign imports, we need to change a little bit so that, those imports cannot be used in our country. Let's make a national standard for that. Wonderful. Well, fast forward, 2025, that doesn't make sense. In a hyper-connected world, we need to have common frameworks, making sure that we all speak the same language. And I'm not talking about English versus German versus Arabic versus whatever language. No, I'm talking about when somebody says incident, it's clear to everyone in the room what incident means, that we don't need to start arguing, no, this is not an incident or that is an incident, right? So that's the reason why standards, and ISO standards in particular, are so powerful, because they help us to have a harmonized common language, common best practices recognized around the globe. Now, coming back to your question, 27019 is a set of additional controls that an organization in the energy sector might want to consider when implementing ISO 27001. So ISO 27001 is Information Security Management System. Very generic, can be used for any organization, by any organization of any size, any complexity, any industry. But as already discussed in the last couple of minutes, there are unique situations and unique aspects and unique risks that are very specific to the utility industry. And because of that, there is 27019 that provides users additional input into aspects that they should and must consider when implementing an effective information security management system. So for all intents and purposes, it's an extension to 27001. And yes, organizations can be audited against it. And yes, I do understand the difference between the word should and shall. But when we are auditing and issuing certificates saying that the controls of 27019 have been considered, those shoulds are translated into shalls.
Excellent.
So just to make sure that we are on the same page.
Amazing. So we are diving deep into this topic of cybersecurity and cybersecurity risks. So we have to try and get our answers as condensed as possible for this next little bit so we can get to as much information as possible. So Swami, for you, how can organizations adopt international standards while aligning with local regulations?
Okay, well, it's a good question. On one hand, the organization want to comply themselves with the standards that are internationally recognized. On the other hand, they also require to be complied to the local requirements. How does this happen? So when things are happening this way, organization will certainly ensure calling emergency services.
Technology is a wonderful thing, as you can
Yeah,
see.
sorry
No,
about
no,
that.
not to worry, not to worry.
Something goes wrong with my mobile. Yeah, about that stuff. So, the requirement of this international standards always requiring attention to focus on by the organization. So many organizations adopt themselves to various international standards. But what are the local regulations? The local regulations are specific to a country and also specific to a industry. Like for example, energy industry will have a specific regulation. Utilities industries will have a specific regulation for them. But on top of it, they have to comply to the requirements of the standard. The management system standard always has the PDCA cycle, though it is not explicitly mentioned in the current versions of the standard. They're all mentioned in an indirect way, and they have to plan something and execute something, then verify and do it. So you have a proper management system in place if you follow the international standard. At the same time, the utilities or the energy specific regulations that are very specific to the local regulations, they are all focusing on what they should do in their industry. So on one side, they have the complete regulatory requirement. On other side, they have the international standard in place. So that means a combination of that, it becomes excellently articulated control environment in the organization. For example, if you take 27001, which is a certifiable management system standard, and also combining yourself with the 27019, that IT/OT environment is going to be very strong, and you have a very strong base, and certainly you can combat, avoid, and defend yourself in the environment that is prone to more attacks, etc. Yeah, that's it.
So, Willie, I'm going to ask you a little bit about governance and leadership roles and what they look like in cybersecurity resilience.
Yes, good question. And I would like to go into a little bit into the chat, because there is an interesting question that I can use to answer your question as well. And the question is, and I read, what are cybersecurity risks of cloud-based vibration IoT sensors?
Whose question is that? And I will bring it up.
Kiran, yes.
There we go.
Yep. What are the cybersecurity risks of cloud-based vibration IoT sensors? Well, it comes down to governance. It comes down to who approved that we can even use those IoT sensors. Was there a risk assessment? Did we do an assessment of the provider of those IoT devices? Are those IoT devices manufactured in a country that is not exactly friendly to our country? What other features do these IoT sensors have? Oh, they also have a microphone. Why would they need a microphone? Right? So it comes down to, we cannot just use our corporate credit cards to buy some kind of equipment, install it into our environment, and hope everything is fine and great. It's guaranteed not to be great. It's guaranteed to be a disaster. On a regular basis, those devices are not manufactured in a secured environment. On a regular basis, those devices are not very well designed in terms of patching and security aspects. And then we come back to what we said earlier, international standards. So the moment I hear cloud, I hear Cloud Security Alliance. I hear CSA STAR. And that's another extension to 27001. So the moment an organization is using cloud-based solutions, whether this is SaaS solutions or whether this is cloud-based vibration IoT sensors, there is all of a sudden the need to have a look at CSA STAR certification. Again, it's talking about shared responsibility between the cloud provider and us, the user. And that is answering your question in terms of, the governance. It cannot be that a single engineer just simply decides, oh, that's a great technology, I use my corporate credit card and I install a couple of those sensors. That is not governance.
No, it is not. You're absolutely right. So we're going to move on a little bit. So Ramesh, let's take a look at the importance. Really talk about risk assessment. Let's take a look at the importance of regular risk assessment, incident response, and employee training. What can you share? And again, in the interest of time, if you can summarize, that would be wonderful.
Absolutely. It's a regular risk assessment and incident response and employee training. These are the three vital elements for any kind of aspects. I would put it in a very short and sweet form. The ISO 27001, even the infrastructure standard, or I can quote occupational health and safety standard. It is a ISO 45001. This all comes under the behavioral standard. Unless otherwise, each and every employee of the organization, if they are supposed to follow and practice and do in all aspects. So any aspects which they are looking into the risk assessment, it is preventive in nature. Earlier, before 2010 to 2010, the risk-based approach model is not there. They started implementing the risk-based approach model, and nowadays everything on the risk-based approach model. Not only that, Willie was talking about the IoT devices and other related aspects. If you are introducing the new devices, before getting into that, you have to do the risk assessment before trial run. So regular risk assessment always it will minimize the risk level. It will not arrest the risk or eliminate the risk permanently. At least minimize the risk level. It is a proactive prevention approach. And when they are doing the risk assessment, also they have to allocate the proper resources. And the person who knows very well on that, they have to allocate the proper resource allocation as to be there. And it will take care of the legal and regulatory complaints related aspects, and finally, the decision authority will make the proper decision on that. These are all the importance of regular risk assessment. Importance of incident response. It was if you are spontaneously working on the incident response, it will minimize the damage and the downtime. I can straight away quote. I will give you one example. Today morning, I was traveling from my home to one of the client area, which is 20 kilometers there. In between, there was an incident happened in the vehicle accident. Within 3 minutes, police arrived over there and set the traffic line and put it on the track. And recovery time objective is 3 minutes for the police. So why I'm correlating this incident? One of the beautiful systems available in Middle East, that too in Dubai, it is a traffic control system. Similarly, any incident in terms of the IT, OT, and other aspects, the incident response time is to minimize the damage and minimize the downtime. Our response has to be faster enough, and faster recovery has to be there. Protect our reputation and the trust. Our response time is very fast enough, and the legal guidance is also insisting on the incident response is one of the vital requirement. So we may be familiarized with the risk assessment and the incident response and other related, and as otherwise the employees, those who are working on the field, which they have not trained properly or the continuously training on these aspects, then we will get into the human error. The human element is one of the vital element. Though we are talking about artificial intelligence and other intelligence, the human intelligence is also very important. And in terms of taking care of whole aspects, so we have to give the employee training on the whole aspects. So these are the 3 vital elements with respect to the regular risk assessment and the incident response and the employee training aspects.
You know, as we knew at the start of this session, there was going to be lots to talk about. And before we continue, I just want to take a look at our audience, because I knew they would be really interested in this topic. So we want to see who has joined us. As always, it's a global audience, and we are delighted to have everybody from every part of the world here to join us to talk about this important topic. We're talking, of course, about cybersecurity and its importance on changing conversations on SGS Live. And I'm joined by my guests, Willie Fabricius, Ramesh Venkatasan, and Swami D, and they're all helping me to break it down. Don't forget, we'll have a Q&A at the end of this interview section. If you want, leave your questions and comments in the chat window below. Okay, one more question before that Q&A, and here it is. Is there such a thing as a public-private collaboration for regional resilience, Ramesh?
Yes, absolutely. Regional resilience. The resilient culture is very, very important in terms of the UAE infrastructure. So what is the regional resilience? I think those who are living in UAE, they are well aware of that, what kind of scenarios, including the geopolitical scenarios and climate changes and whole aspects are happening across it. The country is expanding in terms of the economic growth, and they are expanding the business prospects. The oil and sector field is continuously growing, and not only that, here what my experience, based on my experience across UAE, they are all most of the corporate companies, the government sectors, and all are working on the business continuity model. So these are all the aspects which they are adapting and working on towards the building build the resilience in terms of the cultural point of view. Then they want to act and react proactively, working on the resilient mode. So this is the way which they are working on the resilient culture. So that is a point which I would like to put across the whole aspects.
You know, there's so much to consider, and I want to thank everybody for joining us today to talk about cybersecurity. So my guests are Willie Fabricius, Ramesh Venkatasan, and Swami D, and we're going to head into our Q&A, but before we do, I want to take a quick look back on your answers from our poll question, which was, which area poses the biggest cybersecurity risk in your sector today? So let's take a look at some of the answers, and I'll be interested. Ransomware, yeah. Employees phishing, yeah. Insider misconfiguration. Educating users is the most important, absolutely. Network breaching through IoT, vulnerable or unpatched systems. It looks to me like we've covered quite a few of these. Lack of focus on the risk, not being diligent, and using floppy disks. I've just added that one. Seems like many of these responses are what you might expect. Would you agree with that?
Yes. And I also would like to take the opportunity to address actually two questions. And one question is related to how can we measure the effectiveness of cybersecurity training in reducing human error-based incidences in OT environments? Well, it's not just incidences in OT, it's incidences. Full stop, end of story. Regardless whether this is in OT or in IT or wherever, right? And no, I'm not going to share with you an internal email we all received today from SGS information security function. So we did a phishing campaign, a couple of weeks ago, and the information provided was total users that were got the email, percentage of clicked users, percentage of compromised accounts, meaning where people entered their credentials, and percentage of reported of phishing. That is measuring the effectiveness of training. So, in other words, we test people, we test their reaction, and if then X percentage say, oh yeah, click here and change then that training was not effective. And obviously we strive to bring that percentage down. So that is addressing this one. And then
so Willie,
yes, please.
I was just going to say, this is a PJ question. Is it fair to say that at the end of the day, cybersecurity risks are really human risks? At the end of the day, it's a human who has done some sort of behavior that has caused the incident or the situation.
Yes. I don't want to mention a particular big, let's say, accounting firm that just recently published 1 terabyte of data because of bad configuration of the cloud instances. It comes down to fat finger. It comes down to mistake between the brain and the finger. That's the issue. It's usually not that a chip blows up and something goes wrong, but it's something where a person did something, either intentionally or unintentionally, and that leads to issues.
So I was right. Hooray.
Yeah.
Here's what I want to know. So very quickly, one sentence and one sentence only for each Swami and Ramesh. What is one thing that an employee can do to help minimize security risk? One sentence, because we're running out of time.
Not to violate any information security controls.
Perfect. Swami.
So understand what they do and follow the instructions given by the organization.
Amazing. Okay, this is my final question, and it's really a wrap up, and it's for you, Willie. With SGS supporting organizations for cybersecurity certification and training, what should be their next steps?
Simple. Reach out to your regional SGS office. But kidding aside, of course, please go to sgs.com. See what kind of services we are offering, and then see and reach out to your local SGS office for support, because every customer, every organization is different. Some organizations have no idea what cybersecurity is, and they need obviously training. And then there are other organizations that have been already certified by other certification bodies, but are for whatever reason not happy with the current CP and are looking for alternatives. Great, wonderful, we can help. And in this context, I really would like to emphasize SGS is a truly global organization. We're active in 100+ countries. As usual, we are usually not mentioning any company's name, but let's assure if there is a McDonald's somewhere, there's an SGS office close by. So, at the end of the day, that's one of the benefits. We have 100,000 people. We have 2,700 laboratories and offices around the globe. We are there to help our customers on a global scale. And I think this is on a regular basis important, even for companies that are just operating in one country, because their clients are really global. It's not unheard of that a US company says, all of a sudden we have this requirement for HDS certification in France. What the heck is this? Don't worry, we can help you.
Absolutely.
Or, a company in the UAE says, there is this Australian thing concerning cyber something. Yeah, don't worry, we can help you. Because, well, as a global company, we do have boots on the ground. And we do know a thing or two about cybersecurity regulations and rules in all different countries that have those. Right? So SGS is your go-to partner for cybersecurity resilience, or as we say, digital trust. And that obviously also includes AI assurance.
Do you know what? Perfectly said. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry, but I'm going to have to stop the conversation here because we could talk about this all day. To our audience, we're so glad that you are here to be part of this fascinating and informative SGS Live in our Changing Conversation series. And I would like to thank my guests, Willie Fabricius, Ramesh Venkatasan, and Swami D for joining me. Don't forget that if you want to learn more, please feel free to comment below. And someone will get back to you, or you can also visit our website at sgs.com for more information. I'm PJ Kwong, and thanks for watching. Bye for now.